Evening, everybody, and welcome to Matrix TV. And the dumbing down of America stops here.
Coming up in just a few minutes, you'll meet returning guest Dr. Katherine Albrecht, author of Spy Chips, talking about how major corporations and government want to track your every move.
Yep, the truth is, secret dossiers based on your web browsing habits, what you do and what you buy, are now larger than records once kept by the Russian KGB.
Think about it. Has anyone really sat down and thought about where all that information that you innocently plug into a search engine like Google or Yahoo goes?
In fact, Big Brother is indeed watching you, compiling thousands of statistics on you, and we'll be discussing it in a few moments with Dr. Katherine Albrecht.
Then stay tuned for Stewart Swerdlow. Stewart was once a secret government mentalist. He's also the author of the amazing book Blue Blood, True Blood.
Tonight we'll be talking about a range of topics, including the objects that NASA has discovered hovering near the sun, which we have videotape of, and that mysterious blue light over Norway.
Stewart will also address the connection between the recent Haitian earthquake and the possible eruption of Yellowstone, along with, yes, a coming ice age. That's right, ice age. But first, before we bring on Dr. Katherine Albrecht, let's watch this clip.
People are treating Google like their most trusted friend. Should they be?
Well, I think judgment matters.
Eric Schmidt is Google's CEO.
If you have something that you don't want anyone to know, maybe you shouldn't be doing it in the first place. But if you really need that kind of privacy, the reality is that search engines, including Google, do retain this information for some time. And it's important, for example, that we are all subject in the United States to the Patriot Act. It is possible that that information could be made available to the authorities.
Katherine Albrecht is one of the country's foremost privacy experts and the director of the Consumers Against Supermarket Privacy Invasion and Numbering.
And she joins us tonight to discuss the way data from popular search engines can be used by businesses and governments to track our interests, invade our privacy, and even threaten our freedom.
Thanks for joining us, Katherine.
Hey, it's great to be on with you. You know, this is really one of the key issues that I think is facing all of us in the liberty movement, all of us who are focused on issues of truth and privacy and all the things that I believe in. What people don't realize is that we have unthinkingly over the last decade created a dossier of information about ourselves that would be the envy of the KGB had they been able to get their hands on something like that. The databases that we have created through Google, Yahoo, Bing, and other search engines are so detailed that there has never been anything like them in the entire history of human society. And when I say detailed, I'm saying not even the IRS, not the FBI, not your employer, not your doctor, not your spouse, not your own parents know as much about you as these search engines do. It's absolutely mind-blowing when you realize that they've got an eye-in-the-sky position. And as a privacy advocate, I've got a doctorate in developmental psychology from Harvard University, and I studied consumer issues. And one of the things I tried to understand is why is it that people give away their privacy? And what I've found is it usually stems from ignorance. People don't realize that the actions that they're taking are actually invading their privacy. And search engine searching is a perfect example. When people log onto a search engine, you would never look up private things if you had your neighbor looking over your shoulder, if you're at work, if you had your boss or the guy in the next cubicle looking over your shoulder, staring at the screen. But somehow we have this illusion that if we're in a closed, in a room with a closed door, all alone with that computer screen, that we have privacy. And the reality is we do not. Yeah. And so instead, we type in, I'll give you some examples of the kinds of things that we type into these search engines. A woman has a miscarriage. She goes on to Google and she types in looking for support. Now, that's something she may not reveal to really anybody outside of her immediate circle of friends and spouse. Right. You go to the doctor, you get a prescription for a new medication. What's the first thing you do? You log onto a search engine and you look up the side effects. And that's information. You wouldn't be telling people what drugs you're taking or what medical conditions you have.
And that
if you're about to be laid off, you might look up unemployment benefits. Right. Or if you're fighting with your spouse, you might look up marital counseling or drug rehab for your teenage son. All of these things we unthinkingly type into these search
Right.
engines, and
Catherine,
so as a result, they've got a total picture of our lives.
And this is highly personal information. I mean, a guy may look up, erectile dysfunction or something. Now the whole world knows.
Well, the thing is,
yeah, and it's not only that. I mean, they know our politics.
Right.
They know our proclivities. They can determine, I mean, think about the difference between these two searches. Someone searches for Lady Gaga and, Adam Lambert and American Idol and Dancing with the Stars, and then somebody else gets on and they look up secession and RFID and, Second Amendment issues. Those are two very, very different people. And Google, Yahoo, and Bing, they're aware of that. And what has me concerned, with the recent scandal over the Chinese government or hackers working for the Chinese government really wanting to access information that Google had on dissidents in that country, people who had criticized that government. Governments have a huge interest. They know where the honeypot is. They know where the information is, and that's why they have such an interest in hacking into Google. Or in this country, they wouldn't even need to hack. They could simply serve up a Patriot Act request.
That's right. I was just going to say that. All they have to do is say, hey, this person may have some ties to terrorism. After all, he donated to the Red Cross, the Muslim version of the Red Cross.
I'll go you one worse on that. It wouldn't even be that they'd say, oh, this person may have ties. They could say, turn over the information on every person in the United States who has an interest in Ron Paul. Or put a few keystrokes in there and give me information on every single person in the United States who cares about the Second Amendment. And what woke me up to this was a year ago, Google had actually started, they created a program that would identify people who had the flu based on what they were searching for, believe it or not. So, you might go in and you might look up, time off from work and Robitussin and chicken soup recipes or whatever the combination was. They pinpointed who had the flu. And once they pinpointed those individuals, they figured out their address from their IP address. They figured out their physical location, put a dot on a map, and then they shared that map with the federal government and with the Centers for Disease Control. Now, at that time, they didn't give out names and personal information or IP addresses, but they certainly could have. And had that flu hysteria gone more out of control, you could have had a scenario where if you were one of those people who your searches indicated that you had the flu, you could have a knock at your door and there could be a guy in a white lab coat with a syringe in his hand accompanied by 3 police officers. And you could be told, hey, step out of the house, we're going to inject you. This is the kind of thing that could happen, and certainly given, the MIAC report, I know your listeners are aware of this law enforcement report that said people with an interest in third-party candidates like Constitution candidate Chuck Baldwin or Republican candidate Ron Paul, that they should be considered to be potential domestic terrorists.
Or even people
I guess we're in trouble, Kate.
Yeah, I guess we could be picked up any second for this show even. And you too, Catherine.
Yeah, I mean,
no wonder you're concerned about privacy. I mean, doing what you do.
Well, and anybody who's working in the media or just a researcher or just a person with a brain is looking these things up. And that's why, as a privacy advocate, I don't like to scare people and leave them with no alternative. I used Google for 10 years. Knowing that they were doing this, but I didn't think there was an alternative, so I kind of buried my head in the sand and pretended not to even have to think about it because I thought if I recognize this and acknowledge it, I'm going to have to go off the internet. I won't be able to work.
Catherine, 15 seconds here.
Yeah, well, when we come back, we're going to come back.
Finally, I found the alternative to Google. It's startpage.com. It's a private search engine that doesn't record any of that information. Thank goodness there are alternatives out there.
All right, when we come back from the break, let's get into that and tell everybody once again what this website is.
And also talk about the shadow government.
We'll be right back with Dr. Katherine Albrecht. Stay tuned.